I'm out in Oxmoor today, kind of near Birmingham. It's the site of an old blast furnace. And so this here is a lost cemetery. Stayed unknown for many years. And then somebody happened to cross it. It reminds me of a cemetery down near Montevallo that I found just recently. It was a convict cemetery. So supposedly this was mostly slaves that are in these unmarked graves. This is much bigger than the one that we have in Aldridge, though. Same deal, though. A rock for the head and the foot is all they got. Sunk in graves. I read something saying that they thought that it was because the Union soldiers had tampered with the graves, but that's just what happens to the graves when the pine boxes rot and the dirt collapses. I think they should have piled the dirt up. Instead of scattering it out, pile it up over the grave to where when it collapses, the dirt settles back in. But up on top of the hill were the managers and the people that got gravestones. And some children here. Really old parts and pieces to an old fence here. That is really cool. Put that back where it was. A lot of broken gravestones here. Usually it's the vandals are young men. Locals, kids that knew about it. I read one thing saying that they thought Union soldiers had broken through the stone, the marble, to get into children's caskets looking for treasure. I don't know if there's any validity to that story, but a lot of stories come out in places like this, passed down through the years. May not be any accuracy to them, but people still tell the stories. So these bricks aren't mortared, they're just stacked up here. I'm here today looking for some ruins to an old furnace that was destroyed. There goes the train. This train track was put in for the iron industry. Very old. One of the first ones across the mountain. The first train to cross Red Mountain. But I'm here looking for a furnace that was destroyed by the Union Army in Wilson's raid. It's in an industrial park and everything's been demolished and gone. There's a sign out front. And I was thinking of parking and walking down by the creek and seeing if there was anything that they didn't destroy and remove. So I'm gonna look into getting down there and seeing what's left in the woods. I've seen about all there is of this little cemetery here. It's a cool little eerie spot though. I grew up walking in cemeteries, so I'm not really scared of cemeteries, but when it's kids, you can see that's a kid. Kids and people with no gravestones, it just gives me the creeps. I walked down to the railroad track, still at the cemetery here. The cemetery's over there. So I was just kind of looking to see what it looked like back here. And as I turned around to leave, I looked down and I see this old axe head sitting here. And right next to it is another piece like I saw up there, of a grave fence or something. This is the cool thing. This axe could have been used here to chop roots digging graves. I've seen that before. People find axes in the graveyards that were actually used in that graveyard. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to keep this. I think I'll keep this other piece here too. That'll be my souvenirs for today. That's a lucky find there. Can't believe somebody else hadn't seen that. All right, I think I'm gonna get on down toward the furnace and look at it, see what I can't find over there. I'm kind of parked at this warehouse here. So I don't even know if there's really anything down here, but I do know that there's nothing up there. So the only choice I have is to look in the places that are still here. I think I'm okay. Hurt my hand. Trying to save the camera. These rocks are loose. All right, so here's some old rubble. This big structure here. This is concrete mixed with rock. So hopefully we can find something down here on this flat that still exists from the old days. I don't think that's going to be it. That's a curb. That's not very old. I was wondering if this was concrete that I'm looking at over there. And now I see that piece of a wall up there. That is definitely concrete. So I have found part of it down here anyway. See a natural ford right there. The road comes down into the river right over there. Doesn't appear to come back up on this side, but the river's so shallow you could have went down it, come out somewhere else, or went up the river. We're in a drought, but still it's only about a foot low. There's a bridge right there, some type of a road at the top, and it appears as though there's a structure right over there somewhere. I wish I had different shoes on. I'd try and get across the creek, but I don't want to walk in my tennis shoes. Parasol tree. I like these trees. I got a few in my yard. So I came across a little creek. I really just want to walk up through there. That's going back toward the road. This is the edge of their property. I wish I had on old shoes. I'd just go straight up through there. I meant to bring my old shoes. There's some slag. So I need a whole brick. If I could find a whole brick, I would be satisfied. But not that type of whole brick. That one's about 1960 at the latest. I figured I would have seen more slag by now. Just that one piece. That's closer. Coming up this ditch in between people up here loading trucks and then other people's apartments. That's old cable there. You can hear the train at the other end of this little channel. I can see it a little bit. That would have been the train that this ironworks would have put steel on. Here's another piece of that big old cable. That's some really old stuff. I recognize that from the coal mines behind my house. I had decided to turn around, but I'm thinking I'm going to push on a little farther and just hope that I find something worth going through this trash for. If you don't go, you never know. I've gotten to the end of the line. You see the train up there now. There's a pipe a little ways ahead, but it's these steep banks here and this creek that's keeping me from going on any farther. I was on my way back down this little stream and I noticed this big debris right here, larger than anything else I've seen. And then right here was that old whole brick I was looking for. So here's my brick. I'm going to keep this piece of steel here. Looks like it was from the ironworks. And then this piece of cable. And that will be my keepsake. So I'm going to work my way up through this pile and see if I can get an idea of what it was. Looks like just a foundation of a building. There's another brick. So this sign is really all that's left on the road front. It shows that this was ever here. The railroad tracks are right across there. Did find a few remnants. I'm happy about that. Walking down the road, just getting a feel for what's here. You can't really just move around freely in this area, parking and getting out. There's a pretty high homeless population here locally, and so I'm trying not to draw any attention while walking down the side of the road looking like a homeless person. What I don't want is people getting suspicious of me going in and out of the woods looking for iron ore rubble and what they're thinking that I might be looking for a place to camp or something. So I just try to look incognito. A lot of vapes on the side of the road here. Really not seeing anything in the woods along the way. Wow. Wow. Huh. I'm sorry for that guy. I wonder what's along down through there. I like the outskirts. The edges is where you find stuff. I'm assuming this whole property over here was part of the ironworks. It's been a lot of different businesses. I didn't see much from the road. I saw a couple pieces of concrete up in the woods that looked like they were part of something, but wasn't enough to really walk up in there. That's where I was a minute ago, down at the end of that line, about 2 miles down that way. Just kind of getting off the beaten path and looking around in the outlying edges where not everybody goes. I walked from way down there, about as far as you can see, right up by the road now, behind one of these warehouses, and I'm finding a big chunk of old steel. Pretty old. I don't know if it's from the original stuff or not. No way of really knowing. But it's old and it's metal. Probably just leftover junk that never got moved out of here. Here's an old piece of rebar in the growed up over here in the trees. Saw another one like that in the creek. Well, I've explored up and down the side of the road about all there is to see in walking distance. I walked about 4 miles. I walked 2 miles that way and 2 miles back. Time for me to grab a bite to eat. I'm gonna drive around a little more and see if there's anything else to see in the local area, just driving around. Got in the truck and drove down a little ways. This is a Dollar General. So here's an old outhouse. Don't know where the home site was, whether it was over here or whether Dollar General took its place. Looks like would have been where Dollar General is. There used to be a house. I'm not sure why they would have cut this trail through here. Right now it's nothing more than a road, but it's a lot of work to put a road over here to nowhere. It's almost like this was going to be the railroad pass through here, and they moved it about 100 feet over that way. I don't know why else they would have done this. Trying to figure out which one of these gaps in the mountain came first. And the road sign up there kind of filled me in on the clue. This is Old Gap Road. I'm gonna get back up there and walk down and take a look at where they've cut through the wall. Pretty sure that's rabbit tobacco. A little more impressive than the other gap. This is the old gap, the original one. This is the first way over Shades Mountain. This gap right here is what put Birmingham on the map. It connected Birmingham with the minerals from the south before Birmingham knew they had Red Mountain. The minerals were down in Shelby and Bibb County. Also, this was the way to connect to Selma and Mobile. So this was an important junction here. It's a little scary, a little straight down. Don't want to fall off here, that's for sure. So there's the new water line, and there's the old water line. So this big bridge was built in 1980. A lot of rabbit tobacco up here. This stuff's very medicinal. I have to remember where this was. All right, well, I guess that's about it for today. We've seen a pretty good bit of history and covered some ground. I've driven by this place thousands of times, but I've never really stopped and looked off of here at how far down these railroad tracks were. This railroad tracks actually go through my neighborhood, so it's kind of cool to see it. It's historic beginning here. This was an important part of getting over the mountain. So anyway, that's it for today. We've seen the furnace ruins. Found a couple of ruins, but not a lot left there. It's still cool being in the area where the history was. So I guess I'm gonna call it a day. See y'all next time. Meerkats out.